Hello everybody, thank you for joining the Inclusive Value webinar today. My name's Aileen.
And I'm Douglas.
And we'll be taking you for about 1 hour to talk about the Inclusive Value tool and how it will help your company or training provider. So Inclusive Value is a brand new online resource for the construction industry to support gender equality and inclusion in the workplace, and has been developed in partnership with City of Glasgow College, Construction Innovation Centre, Sir Robert McAlpine in Equate, Scotland, to deliver an online tool that will assist employers in the UK construction sector work towards creating a more inclusive and diverse workplace culture. But before we go into exactly how the tool can help you, I'm just going to run through some housekeeping rules. So all your microphones have been automatically turned to mute, so we won't be able to hear anything, any questions or comments that you would like to contribute. So what we would like you to do in that case, if you do have any questions, is to type them in the speech bubble in the bottom corner of your PC or whatever device that you are using. If you can't hear us at this point, could you please let us know using the speech bubble at the bottom, so you won't be able to hear me, and then we can try and help you do that. And this webinar is being recorded and can be accessed after the event. So if you would like to cover anything or look over anything again, we'll be sending that link round after the webinar. There'll be plenty of opportunity, we'll be stopping throughout, and there'll be plenty of opportunity for us to answer any of your questions. And I think that's all the housekeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. So what we'll go over the webinar overview.
Yeah, so the webinar today is going to be split into 4 distinct sections. So in the first section, we'll have a look at exactly what inclusive value is, why we've started this project, and how it may be of benefit to your business or to businesses that you work with. In the second section, we will take a very practical walkthrough guide on how to access the tool, how to sign up to use the tool, and how to start engaging employees within your company and generating reports that we certainly hope will be of value to you in developing a more inclusive workplace. In the third section, we will take you through how to use the data that's generated by the tool to start making evidence-based decisions that we know have a positive impact on creating more inclusive and more diverse workplace environments. And then finally, we'll take you through some of the lessons that our team have learned through the development of the tool and our early use. So we're working with a number of different construction companies across the UK, and we'll share some of the insights that are starting to come through. Now, before we do, can I just ask, are there any questions? Or are we all quite happy, ready to go? Excellent. Okay, so we don't have any questions so far. Okay, so I'm going to start by taking you through some of the stats that relate to women's participation in the construction labour market. Now, I don't know where the participants for today's session are coming from, but I guess that you're here because you have some form of vested interest in creating a more diverse and inclusive workplace within the industry. There are a couple of key stats that really jump out at our team and I guess underpin the reason that we have an inclusive value project in the first place. So for those of you that are close to the industry, it will come as no surprise when we say that the representation of women within the construction sector is exceptionally low and remains at a fairly steady low despite a number of well-intentioned initiatives and interventions. A couple of stats that we can identify is that right across the industry, there's between 15 and 20% of employees are women. Many of them are in administration, clerical, office type roles. And when we look at technical and operative roles, then it drops quite considerably. The graph that's on your screen just now actually looks at modern apprenticeships within Scotland And what you can see is that the blue line that runs across the bottom of that graph indicates that there are only 2% of modern apprentices who are actually coming through the system that are women. This graph possibly shows it in a slightly different light, and really the core story here is that in spite of quite significant investment from industry, from government, from public sector agencies, from the education sector, not only is the proportional representation of women in the sector low, it's actually dropping, and it's dropping at a considerable rate, particularly in those technical and operative roles. And unfortunately, we're seeing for modern apprenticeships as one of our core areas of interest, it's dropped from about 2.1%, it's heading down towards 1.3%. And again, we can demonstrate that that's fairly consistent across the industry, with only a slight uptake in the more professional and technical areas. So why is this happening? Well, I guess the key message here is that there are a myriad of reasons that women are not coming into the industry. And actually, when we look at it slightly wider, there's a myriad of reasons that a number of people aren't coming into the industry. But if we can focus on women as one of our key demographics in this project, this slide kind of captures some of the key issues that we've been able to identify. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that construction is an industry that is absolutely steeped in very gendered language. So we see signs like men working overhead, caution men in road, and we see men at work. And even as a member of the public, the public face of the industry is very male orientated. Aileen and I were talking earlier about some of the language that's associated with roles. We talk about tradesmen, we talk about foremen, we talk about workmanship, we talk about chairmen, and right the way through, there's a very clear message that this is a male-dominated industry. Some of the adverts that we see, this particular one in the middle of your screen is looking for a quantity surveyor, and you will see that the advert makes it very clear that he has an engineering degree, he is fluent in English and Italian and so on. And then again, the images on the right hand side capture some of the workplace environments where calendars showing scantily clad women are still commonplace, particularly in small to medium enterprises. We have exacerbated gender pay gaps right throughout the industry, and we still have an industry that's built around very male dominated pursuits like golf days and sports events. And similar. I'm just going to hand over to Aileen now to take you through some of the key issues that we're particularly interested in before we head over to the tool itself.
Yeah, so when we started to develop the tool, the Inclusive Value team sat down and we looked at all the potential barriers that could prevent women entering and staying in the construction sector. And we identified over 200 evidence-based barriers to the participation of women in engineering and construction. And I'm just going to mention some of them today, although they are not limited to these. But firstly, we looked at recruitment and the informal recruitment practices that are likely to occur in the construction sector, such as hiring within family or within your friendship group, and not publicly advertising roles. Another one is the perception of the industry that and the stereotype of what it is to work in the construction sector still remains. And these are reinforced by career advice from school and also from family members. Gender-based discrimination and hostile on-site environments very much occur within the construction sector and need to be addressed. And the resistance to industry change and working practices to address the workplace culture and to look at unconscious bias and discrimination and take discrimination head on in a workplace environment. And then current funding apprenticeship models that do not support employers who are keen to diversify their workforce but feel they don't have the expertise or the resources to do so. And that is really why the Inclusive Value tool has been developed to provide a support. It's for the construction sector which allows them to apply evidence-based policy decision making, and they can identify areas in their organisation that if they made changes to one specific area, then they are more likely to see a positive change, instead of what's the wording? Almost like what they think might make a positive change. They don't necessarily that cannot necessarily be backed up by evidence.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess one of the key things there for us is that what we do know is that there are a number of progressive employers within the industry, and quite often they are absolutely determined to create a more diverse workforce and to create more inclusive workplace practices. But quite often they invest in areas that are fairly high cost or high resource, but we know have limited impact. What we've also found in our early stage research for this particular project is that there are many employers out there in the industry who really want to do something, who really want to make a difference, and just don't know where to start. So the primary aim of the Inclusive Value Tool is to support employers to develop very objective assessments of their workplace in real time, a snapshot in time if you like, and then move towards making evidence-based decisions in the different strategies and interventions that they can adopt that are low cost and high impact and make a difference from day one. What we're going to do is just come off our screen share there and just open it up to the audience. If anyone has any questions before we move on to how to actually use the tool. If you do, you can unmute your microphone, or you can just type a message into the chat box. No, we're all good. Okay. So we are going to hop over to our project website, and what I'm hoping is that you will all be able to see this in just a moment. Okay, so we start off by going over to www.inclusivevalue.co.uk, and that will take you onto a web page that looks just like this. So the web page is designed to be fairly easy to use right from the offset. You'll see a little bit of information about what the project is. It outlines some of our aims and details the different benefits that we're looking to bring to the industry. You'll also see that we have some core demographics or core people, job profiles within the industry that we're particularly interested in connecting with. So if you are an HR professional, an industry professional or a leader, then this tool is for you. What you'll also note at the bottom is that we do have a statement about gender. So whilst we're very focused on gender equality in the industry, we do recognise that gender is not a binary issue. And there's a little bit of information there for those of you that are interested as to what we actually mean by gender. Now, what you need to do to sign up is actually very easy. So here's one I made earlier. You type in your name, your job title, your email address, and your company name, and then you choose register. Now, this is the part of the webinar where we're highly likely to get major technical issues and everything will fall apart. So, struct inclusive value. Sorry. Email.com. Okay. So hopefully we will register here, and we've had a notification to thank us for signing up. So really just to sign up, that's all you need to do. And then you should be able to hop over to your inbox and receive a notification from our Inclusive Value website. What I will say is, while we're waiting on that notification to come through, that we have had limited reports of the Notification being held up in a spam filter. So if it doesn't come through right away, then just double check that your spam filter hasn't picked it up, and you should be absolutely fine. So hopefully by now that will have come through. And you'll see here that we've been asked to verify our inclusive value account. Okay, so we're just going to click on that. And I am going to type in a password that I will definitely remember. Okay, so we have started a company. We're called Strathclyde Construction. I am the head of construction, go me. And you have the option here to put in a little bit of an organisational description, which really just captures who you are and what you're about. This description isn't actually used by the tool, but it's really useful for when you send a survey out to your employees, just to give them some context for what this is and why you're doing it. It also just gives it a degree of authenticity. And what you can also choose to do is include an organisational preamble. So if, for example, you want to say that you are Aileen, you're the HR director of Strathclyde Construction, and you're looking to use this tool because you're aiming to achieve a better workplace culture for everyone, then this is the place that you can do this. You can also choose to update a logo if you wish to do so. And really, once you put all that in, then your profile will have been updated successfully and you will be ready to go. So you can update or change your profile at any time by using this little Manage Profile button on the left-hand side. Now, what you'll also see is that there are 3 buttons here. So you have your dashboard button, which will go into the next section. You have respondents who are just in there, and you have your profile, which we've already seen. But what we're particularly interested in is starting our phase 1. So we're just going to start there, and that's us. Okay, so we've started phase 1. We've got a couple of options here. We can again go in and change our company profile, or we can add participants, and we're really quite keen to do that. So we're going to add our first respondents. There's 2 ways that you can do this. So the first way is to type in the email address of the respondent that you're looking to send it out to, or you can just click on Add Respondent, and it will generate a little code right there that you can manually send to employees of your company. So if you don't want to put your employees or company email addresses into the system, you can just generate it automatically. And if you're happy for the system to send them out, then you can do that as well. What I will say is that we don't collect any personal identifying data on anyone whatsoever. So at no point will we or you be able to identify who your respondents are. But what we are also going to do is take you into this section here. And what you'll see is that your respondent, so we've got a little code here, which is str-lead. We are just going to type that in, str-lead, and submit code. So, Aileen, do you want to take us through the early stages of the questionnaire?
Yes, so at the early stage of the questionnaire, they're going to ask you about the demographics of your company. So we can understand whether you're a small employer, an SME, or if you're a large organisation. And this will just let us understand the landscape of the construction sector that is using our tool. So I'll ask you questions such as your current annual turnover, 10 million, great business.
Yes, we're doing well, we're very successful.
Does your company operate on a local, national, international level? And I'll ask you about your gender split of your organisation.
No.
And it'll ask you about full-time and part-time roles also. So you'll need to know quite a lot of information to be able to get the best possible value out of using this tool.
Yeah, so there's another thing just to consider is that the questions that you're asked will very much be based on the responses that you've given to previous questions. So if you are a small to mid-sized company, particularly a company below 50 employees, then you'll get a basic version of the survey, because we recognise that a number of the solutions that larger companies will adopt aren't best fit for small employers or for micro businesses. So if you are a company with less than 20 employees, you'll answer about 32 questions. And if you're a company with 250 employees or more, then you're more likely to be asked about 60 questions. We've timed this on a number of different company sizes, and the maximum amount of time that it takes is about 25 minutes. And from that point there, you're able to send it out to all your employees. I'm just going to hand over to Aileen again to take you through some of the questions that we're likely to ask. And we are going to hand over to, we're going to upload just a slightly different profile that we've generated before we started this webinar.
So the questions that employers are likely to be asked are going to be covering 5 key areas. So they're going to be policy and working practices. So that's going to cover things like flexible working, any maternity, paternity and shared parental leave. We're going to be looking at talent attraction. Talent attraction will look at how you recruit your workforce and any other activities that you do, including community outreach. It's going to be looking at pay and reward, including questions such as the gender pay gap, also if there's transparency, or if there's a clear career progression within your organisation. And then it's going to be looking at workplace culture. Workplace culture is notoriously quite a difficult thing to measure, but from the perspective of the Inclusive Value Tool, it's about understanding how your employees feel in the workplace and understanding how you think your employees feel in the workplace. And once these questions have been answered, a similar set of questions will be sent out to your employees to answer, and they'll compare and contrast. And then we'll be able to create a report, which Douglas is about to show us now.
Okay, so this is a report that's been generated for a fictional company called Dickens Vigand. And Dickens Vigand have actually worked through 2 different phases. So they've taken the test, and they've generated results and a report, they've received recommendations, and they've come back to do a different test 6 months later to see what impact that's had. Now, there's a couple of things here that are really quite interesting. So the first of which is that you will see that you have 2 different responses here. The one on the inside is the response that employees have given, and the one on the outside is the responses that the employer has given. And so really one of the really interesting things that we've sought with this tool is to identify the difference between the espoused practices or practices within the company and how employees actually feel within the company. And that's led to some really interesting insights that we'll share in the next section. What you'll also see is that for Dickens Vigand, they have an area that is, I'm not going to say it's high performing at 44%, but the area that they're doing best in is talent attraction. And the area they need to do more work in is within pay and reward. Now, Dickens Vigand have received a whole range of different suggested actions. These actions are all evidence-based. We give priority to actions that have some form of legislative or compliance function. So if there's something that a company is not doing that they need to do by law, that will automatically be on the first, or automatically be the first action or within the first group of actions. From that, we then prioritise based on cost, and that's not just financial cost, but overall resource and impact. What we can also do is generate information, so we can break down specific questions by theme and find out exactly what employees are saying. So in this particular example, we're looking at the lead question, which is relating to the company's flexible working policy. And what we're able to show is that the company employer, so the person that set up the account, has been asked if the company has a flexible work policy, but the employees have actually been asked 3 questions. So they've been asked, firstly, do they know that there's a flexible working policy in place? Secondly, to what extent would they feel comfortable making a request under flexible working? And thirdly, have you ever been refused a request under a flexible working policy? And so we're able to generate all of those responses and feed them up into this specific report, which again helps to identify where gaps exist. So this is phase 1 for Dickens Weigand. They received the report. They then went on to complete phase 2. You'll see that the graph is quite different. But what we can also do is look through all of the recommendations that were made in phase 1, and we can then track to see if progress has been made. So unfortunately, Dickens Weigand were not doing so good in flexible working in phase 1, and the feedback from phase 2 is indicating that they've still not made any progress. As we start to go down, we'll see that we've got some good news here around shared parental leave policy. They've been able to adopt the strategies that were suggested, and employees are now reporting that this is an area that's improved significantly. There's some progress around paternity leave more generally, and as we scroll down, you can see that for the majority of things, the majority of suggestions, Dickens Weigand haven't done so well, but there are some areas where progress has been made, and they are able to track that progress. So, okay, so we don't have any questions just now, but again, please do just pop them into that text box at any time, and we'll pick them up. So I'm now going to hand back over to Aileen, who's going to take us through some of our findings.
So the question we often get asked is, so what works in improving gender equality and diversity in your organisation? So the first thing that we always say is speak to your employees and ask it is what they need and what they require to be their best selves at work. And this is a key part of the inclusive value tool, and this is why we've created a tool that brings in both the employee's perspective and the employer's perspective, and allows you to make decisions based upon that. Flexible working is highly desirable, and it is no longer just a requirement of women in the workplace, but of parents and of young people that are coming into the workplace. The construction industry needs to adapt to the new generation coming into the workplace and understand what their work requirements are, and flexible working is very much a big part of that. Work placement schemes are a really great tool, and under Positive Action and through Equate Scotland, you can put on, or you can set up women-only placement schemes that allow women who are studying science, technology, engineering, or built environment qualification to gain work experience that they may not be able to have access to without these schemes. So if you're interested in doing something like that, please get in touch with Equate Scotland. Ensuring PPE and equipment that is safe for every single person on site is a necessary requirement to have an inclusive workplace environment. Degendering adverts and posting ads more widely can be extremely effective, like we were mentioned before. The construction sector often do informal recruitment, but opening that up to universities and to engage with universities and colleges, to engage with online recruitment resources, and they don't have to be expensive, but ensuring that you're opening the recruitment avenues up will widen the diversity of your applications. And collaboration as well with the construction industry and more widely with education and the Scottish Government. What doesn't work? So one-off engagement events with young people. So often we'll come across an organisation that will say, well, we had a one-day event to engage young girls in S2 in construction. But from that, we haven't seen any increase in the number of applications in female apprenticeships. Well, this was a one-off engagement, and that they don't work in isolation to one another. You need to be putting diversity and culture efforts together to see a sustainable impact. Introducing policies without implementation and a communication plan. So unless everybody understands what you're trying to achieve and everybody is on board with it, then it is unlikely that you're going to see any success. And saying that you have a commitment to diversity and inclusion without putting the policy and practices in place can seem as though you're doing something, but in the long term, it doesn't create any long-term sustainable changes.
Okay, so whilst we've been using this tool, we've worked with around 30 companies so far. Some of them have given us case studies, others have just let us speak to employees, and many of them have actually used the tool. One of the things that's really taken us by surprise is that we ask employees whether they have engaged in equality, diversity and inclusiveness training, but we also ask them if they've engaged in training more generally. And what's been really surprising is that for the companies that have used the tool so far, just over 80% of employees have engaged in equalities training within the last 12 months. Now that might seem really high, but I have to say that the companies that have used the tool to date are the companies that are a little bit more progressive and are already on a journey with this. So we're over 80% of employees have done some form of equalities training. But interestingly, when we look at the employees' responses to have you engaged in training within the same time period, it's actually less than 35%. And so the message there is that employees don't actually view equalities training as real training. And again, when we've dug a little bit deeper into that, the feedback is that it's generally very compliance focused, it's very tick boxy, and it doesn't really have much value. So in actual fact, employees fairly resent going through these types of equalities training. So I guess the message there from us is that if you are going to invest in equalities training, then please do invest in experiences that bring employees together to discuss some of the key issues and consider them in their context, rather than pushing them through an e-learning module. Another thing that's really came through is that there's a fairly strong business case for diversity in the workplace. We've always spoken about the diversity, the business, the legal and the moral case for diversity. And what's been interesting is that we used to be talking, or when we spoke to companies in the past, they'd be talking about the business case really revolving around profitability. But actually that's starting to shift from being profitable to actually surviving, and recognising that there is a real war on talent. It's become increasingly difficult to bring people into the industry, and that there's an urgent need to start diversifying the talent pool from which the industry recruits. So I think that's a really positive message, and that there are other triggers that are really driving the diversity agenda from a business case. I think we also have to be honest and recognise that whilst there is a business case for diversity, the evidence does show that, particularly for small and micro companies, engaging in the development of more diverse workforces is likely to have a short-term hit on profitability. And I think that we kind of tend to oversimplify the benefits of diversity. Ultimately, this is about change management. It's about culture change. It's tricky. It requires sustained effort. It requires commitment. And it's not always going to work first time perfectly. So I think what we're trying to encourage employers to do is to take that evidence-based approach to make investments in collaboration with their workforce, and be patient and wait for those returns to come through. The last thing that, and again, it's such an obvious one, but what we are seeing in almost every report that comes through the tool is that companies have a whole range of different things that are in place that their employees just don't know about it. And I guess for us, what we're now reflecting on is that whilst there's clearly a significant issue within the industry, in relation to gender equality and equality more generally, that the latent potential in the miscommunicated, non-communicated interventions is massive. And if companies can do nothing more than speak with their workforce, make sure that they promote the different initiatives and opportunities that they have to the existing workforce, then that can actually lead quite a long way to making some positive progress.
So we've come to the end of our webinar, but before we end there, does anybody have any questions about what has been covered? Give everyone a couple of seconds. Okay, great. So anyway, we just want to thank you for joining us today, and we hope if you haven't already signed up, that you do sign up to the Inclusive Value Tool, and if you have signed up but you haven't then taken the step to go into phase 1, that you then go on to do that. For us the reason why we've developed this tool is so we could have collaboration between industry and to create practical advice for industry to take steps towards creating an inclusive and diverse working environment. Okay,
so thank you everyone for joining our Inclusive Value webinar. It's a first for us, so we appreciate it may not be as polished as the news at 10, but we will distribute links to this video and also to some of the resources that we've used throughout the presentation. If you'd like to get in touch with either Aileen or I, then you can do so. Aileen is contactable at
a.o'hagan@napier.ac.uk.
And I'm contactable at douglas.morrison@cityofglasgowcollege.ac.uk. And again, we'll share those contact details in our follow-up correspondence. We will send slides to everyone just through the Eventbrite link. So please do look out for that. Also check your spam folders if it doesn't come through within the next 24 hours. Thanks again, everyone. Good luck in your journey towards creating a more inclusive workplace. Please do get in touch if the Inclusive Value team can support that work. It's been a pleasure to present to you all. Thank you and goodbye.